Identify.
Sport. It could be called the great theater of life. Every game or event takes us on a dramatic journey into the highs and lows of the human experience. There are winners and losers, good guys and bad guys, and the underdogs who defeat the powerful against all odds. The big difference from real life is that we understand the rules. We can watch a powerhouse of emotions being played out in very clear-cut boundaries. For the athletes, the stakes can be incredibly high. Within seconds, hopes and fears and excellence are there for the world to watch. Careers can disappear in an instant through injury. A slump in performance can end the dream behind years of training, sweat, and dedication. Sometimes there's millions of dollars at stake, both for players and team owners. Plus, there's the adoration or disdain of fans. It can be a fantasy world far removed from normal life.
I'm Teresa Cruz, and welcome to State of Mind. This series will take a look at sports from a different perspective, from inside the minds of some of the world's top athletes. And we'll talk to the sports psychologists who help these athletes get a handle on their mental and emotional worlds.
They experience moments of joy and achievement, but they also have fears and doubts. The big difference is that the top performers have learned mental skills to not only get them through the rough spots, but perform to the best of their ability under incredible stress. This series will look at how they focus, how they shut out negative thoughts that can affect their performance, how they build confidence, and how they mentally prepare to take on the best in the world.
Sports psychology has different impacts on different athletes in different sports. In speed skating, I think that sports psychology is probably a third of the sport. If you can figure out how to race psychologically, how to mentally get your head together for a race, that's at least a third of your race, if not more. So for me, when I get really, really nervous, so nervous that I feel like I can't deal with it, I start to think about the technical things that I have to do in my race, and it's almost like a cue. I decided one day that when I get nervous, I'm going to use that nervousness to make me cue stay low or push straight to the side or some technical thing that I'm working on, and that's, I think, how it affects me as an athlete. Every athlete's going to be different. Every athlete has different weaknesses, and sports psychology generally helps that athlete in the way that they need to help themselves because of their weakness, their particular weakness.
In our own lives, we all at some time run into difficult situations. The same mental techniques used by athletes can make a big difference in how we handle the situation and how we feel about ourselves. Whether it's speaking in front of a crowd, having to make an important decision like quitting a job, or having to face a life-changing crisis like battling cancer. It doesn't matter if you win or lose in sport or life. It's all about your state of mind.
How did state of mind come to be such an important part of the sporting world? Well, it's been known for years that your mental state affects your performance.
In the 1950s, sports psychology in North America was largely an academic discipline being studied in universities. Motivation attracted a lot of interest. Pep talks were useful, but it became apparent that the effects were fleeting. That brought up the idea that athletes had to manage their own personal stress and anxiety in order to perform under pressure. In the 1960s and 70s, sports psychologists began to examine some of the specific stresses that athletes face, injuries and burnout, and leadership issues. But another wave soon hit. Powerhouse athletes began to come out of the Soviet bloc countries. Sport in the Soviet world was highly organized and orchestrated to create a dominating force in athletics. Unlike North America, East Germany and Russia had created a system that incorporated sports psychology and applied the sports sciences. This new wave helped move North American sports psychology from an academic discipline into application in the sporting world. The 1980s saw the start of the golden age of applying psychological skills to enable athletes to find the right mental state by learning how to relax, to set goals, build confidence, and to energize at the right moment. But many other issues soon surfaced, and not all were positive. Drug abuse, eating disorders, even sexual harassment of young athletes by coaches. Now, a sports psychologist might help an athlete with family problems, issues with work or school, along with making the transition out of the sporting world. The discipline has become an all-encompassing view of life and state of mind.
Yogi Berra once had a great quote. He said that sport is 50% physical and 90% mental. Ironically, it's 100% mental. If your head isn't into it, you're not able to take advantage of any of the work you did on your skills, your tactics, or your fitness.
Kel Botterill has been a sports psychologist for 30 years. He's worked with the New York Rangers, the LA Kings, Olympic and national teams, and athletes in such individual sports as cycling and speed skating.
Emotions in sport are the same ones in life, but they're turned up. I mean, it's like sport is a life with the volume turned up. And so emotionally, you will experience fear, you'll experience anger, guilt and embarrassment, you'll experience surprise, you'll experience sadness, happiness, and interest or excitement in what's there. Those are the basic human emotions, and every young athlete experiences them sometimes within minutes in a game. And our ability to handle them, manage them, and respond to them has a lot to do with how well we play, how healthy we stay, and how much we enjoy life.
Enjoying life. We all view the world a bit differently. We're all looking to be happy in our careers, at home, and in our communities.
We all measure ourselves and judge the different things that we do, often harshly. As we rush around with our busy lives, we get sidetracked. We seldom step back, take a look at what we're doing or where we're going. We lose perspective, and athletes often battle the same problems.
I think maybe the most important idea surfacing in applied sports psychology right now is the idea of perspective. If you know who you are, and you think about it, and you reflect on it, and you come to know who you are and your roles in life, and you have that insight, then you realize there's people around you. They're your team people, and your personal team, as well as maybe your professional team, that you can count on regardless. You start to feel more secure and more inner peace and more able to live life for what it is. And then the final thing is your values. How do you want to live? On what terms?
Perspective is really about how we look at life and how we see ourselves. One of the reasons that perspective has become so important is from looking at what happens to many athletes once they retire. More often than not, they have great difficulty adjusting to normal life. The National Football League reports that within 1 year of leaving the sport, there is a 50% divorce rate. Problems with substance abuse are not uncommon, along with a loss of confidence, low self-esteem, even suicidal feelings. Those who make the transition more easily are those athletes with perspective, those who do not judge their self-worth by their performances in sport.
Identify.
Tanya Dubnikov was a world-class cyclist. In her career, and now having left the sport, perspective has sometimes been a struggle, but also a saving grace.
Perspective is huge, I think, when you look at the cornerstones of human performance.
Tanya Dubnikov won almost every accolade in cycling, from the World Cup to setting a world record.
I definitely had the love of sport, and that sport was cycling. What's interesting is that I've won every event. Nationals like 14 times, and World Championships, every medal at the World Champs, silver, bronze, 3 Pan Ams, 2 Commonwealths, the world record, everything except an Olympic medal. And I'm thinking, what is that? So that makes me think a lot, and it doesn't keep me awake at night, but it definitely has me wondering, well, why not every 4 years? What's up with that? Why, was there too much pressure? Was the training, were we afraid of doing too much? Were we afraid of doing too little? What, did I not want it enough? Did I And this is an ongoing thing, and I think deep down inside I just really have to be comfortable with who I am, and it doesn't matter what place I would have come, and that's it. Even at the very young age, I remember taking my own training wheels off my bike to be able to ride down the driveway because I really wanted to, I didn't want these baby wheels on my bike anymore, so I did it myself.
Dubnikov's first big win on the international circuit was at the 1995 Pan Am Games in Cuba.
To tell you the truth, I had I didn't realize how big the Pan Am Games were, and even the first Olympics. I'm going to the Olympics, yay, but I didn't know what it meant to train, to work hard, to have, to overcome adversity, to be there, the sweat. And I mean, I just went through I just kind of had fun, and when I got there, won.
Dubnikov's career turned more serious after the 1992 Olympics, where she placed sixth. For her, it just wasn't enough. To prepare for the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, she recruited a team of sport professionals. First on her hit list was sports psychologist Cal Botterill.
I had heard about her, but I had not met her. And so she kind of bounces in, and she's got a little four-page document and kind of looks around a bit, and then, here, have a look at this, And then I'm started scanning, and she says, you want to be part of this or not? And I'm thinking, holy smokes, this is incredible, And I said, where do I sign up? Because the next thing you say is when someone has that kind of belief and gumption, you want to be part of it yourself. You say, yeah, let's go. Let's get going.
Cal's a really easygoing person. He's very approachable. He has a lot of experience. So that's sort of how it was. We would, go for coffee, then go for lunches, and we would just shoot the breeze, And, through us shooting the breeze, there would always be these, I wouldn't say subliminal messages, but there'd always be these sort of messages to sort of keep you on track.
Yet there was one point when Dubnikov did get off track. Part of it was burnout, part perspective. Botterill was her sounding board.
I think this was the biggest turnaround in a person in 2.5 weeks I've ever seen in my whole career.
There was some instances where I lost my perspective, and I was judging my worth as a human being because of how well I did at a race. And it's amazing how many people do that. Training hard for 98, the beginning of the season in May, we had a World Cup in Victoria in Canada, and I didn't do as well as I wanted to. And I'm like, what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? I'm putting all my energy in this, and I'm not getting out of it what I want to.
I'm sitting in my office, and she's saying, 3 months ago I was feeling great, but I'm out of energy. I got no motivation. I'm not sure. She said, maybe I'm done. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I guess if you're done, you're done. But I said, let's not make any decisions until maybe you're feeling more rested and you start to feel some energy flowing.
It's really funny to hear Cal, because I thought he played it pretty cool, Now to see he was kind of panicking is interesting.
She took 2 or 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks to be exact, went out in the mountains, did some painting, got back in touch with herself, with nature. The energy started to flow.
I think it was just taking a break and realizing why I wanted to do cycle, and I realized because I loved it. You get your perspective and go outside and revisit the dream as to why you're doing this in the first place. Then you can go, hey, you know what? I'm not doing too bad. So it's this sort of balance between what is your real perspective, what is the perspective, and at the same time you still want to have that edge as to, you know what, you can go better. You can do better than that.
2.5 weeks later, she says, where's the bike? And she bounds into my office saying, I'm going to the Olympics, I'm going to do this and this or whatever. So in 2.5 weeks, incredible turnaround in someone's nature, energy level, motivation, focus, sense of team and everything.
I came back with a force, and that was the turnaround year. It was so fast. Oh yeah, and that's when things become so easy. And there was, a point in that race where it was like, I was so on top of it that it was really easy. And that's easy speed, that's what a lot of athletes speak of. So I think at the end of the day, you have to walk away from whatever you're doing, whether it is sport, whether it is you're a doctor, whether it is you're a teacher. You have certain responsibilities as an individual, but you also have values for yourself. And when you walk away from the table or whatever, your arena, and say, you know what, I'm good. I'm a good person.
The idea about being a good person is an important part in sports psychology, but it has to be more than just an idea. We have to believe that we are good people. Many of us walk around with doubts in our heads. In fact, studies suggest that in North America, up to 80% of people walk around with negative self-talk.
I have no future. I'm a failure. I don't have any confidence. I'm so unhappy.
That's 8 out of 10 people.
Athletes wrestle with the same negative self-talk, but unless the self-talk is positive, they'll never reach their potential. No one will. You have to believe that you can achieve. And that's where sports psychology has made the biggest inroads in the last 20 years, teaching mental skills to teach athletes how to believe that they can achieve.
Sometimes when an athlete comes into my office and says, I've lost my confidence, I said, where is it? It's got to be around here somewhere, you know. And when you look at it carefully, there are a lot of things we can do about our confidence. And so once we look at it as a skill, we could review the highlights of our life or our career and review them and imagine what they would feel like. We could go out and do some things that make us feel good about ourselves. We could go to a great movie and vicariously relate to the characters, and we'd end up more confident. We could listen to great music. So there's a whole host of practical things that we can do to enhance our confidence.
There's no better example of rebuilding confidence than to stare death in the face on a ski hill and then come back to conquer that mountain once again.
Brian Stemmel became a member of the Canadian national ski team in 1985. He was one of those fearless racers who careened down mountains at 120 kilometers an hour. But his life changed in a split second in 1989 on one of the most feared mountains on the World Cup circuit, the Hahnenkamm in Kitzbühel, Austria.
I made the turn pretty well, or at least what I thought, and as I saw the net kind of creeping up on me, that's when I knew that I was somewhat in trouble, but I honestly still thought that I could make it. And until my hand actually caught on the net and then my ski caught on the net, did I know that I was in serious trouble. I had a feeling that it was bad, but I said to my coach when he came up to me and when I was being taken away, make sure you tell my parents that I'm all right. So I said that to him because I thought I was going to be all right.
But Stemmel was not all right. He had smashed his pelvis, had sustained massive internal injuries, and was in a coma.
My parents were told that I had a 50-50 chance of living, and that was on Wednesday. I'd fallen on Sunday, and Thursday I came out of the coma and started breathing on my own, which turned out to be my dad's birthday.
5 operations later and several months in the hospital, Stemmel began the long road to recovery with a new perspective.
My first concern was just being able to walk again, and that's all I really wanted to do. I just always knew that I was going to. It was just a matter of taking some time to heal and get strong again before I was able to walk. It's weird when you get into a situation like that where you come so close to dying that you're thankful that you're alive, regardless of anything else, if you can't walk again, or you're just happy to be alive, and that was the attitude that I had. So I was never really depressed or sad. All I wanted to do was get better.
The physical healing was accompanied by mental healing, and the comeback was only possible with the help of sports psychologists. It was the first time that Stemmel had felt he needed the help.
I think when you're younger, you are absolutely fearless, and you feel like you're invincible, and that's what I felt through the beginning of my career, that I was invincible, and I didn't need any sports psychologist to help me. But once I did fall, and I had some injuries, and I had some problems in the start, dealing with fear and being scared of the speed, I knew that I had to turn to somebody to let them help me. Just trying to be comfortable in the hotel before free skiing on the training hill, being in the start area with the guys, just concentrating on that part a lot more, because the 15 minutes prior to the race is the worst. The actual race is easy. It's that 15 minutes before where those bad things creep into your mind and you're thinking about falling and being injured.
A different mental skill came into play when Stemmel returned to Kitzbühel years later and to the section of the hill where he had almost lost his life.
I had to take a moment for myself just to make sure I was going to do the race for the right reasons. And I stood in the Stahlhang section where I'd fallen in inspection for probably 45 minutes, and you're only allowed an hour on the course. And I spent a lot of time in that section of the course just making sure that I knew where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do that first training run down. And that was really tough. It was kind of a spiritual moment for me where I had wanted to put the past out of my mind, but I couldn't. I still was thinking about it constantly, but you just have to deal with it properly.
He was able to regain his confidence and even came close to winning an Olympic medal in 1998. But a year later, he decided to retire from the national ski team after another brush with injury. Ironically, on his nemesis, Kitzbühel. He fell and this time separated his shoulder.
After I fell in Kitzbühel, I knew I didn't want to do it anymore. And I continued the rest of the season, believing that I still had a chance to do well, but I think knowing in my heart that I didn't ever want to be injured again that badly. I didn't want to be nervous all the time anymore. And that's what I felt, or how I felt every morning of every day, was just being nervous. Even if it wasn't an actual race day, I'd have a bowl of cereal in front of me. I'd eat one bite of it, and I couldn't eat anymore because I was so nervous. And I didn't want to feel like that anymore. And that's when I knew that my time was up. I think what athletes do more than everyday people is deal with things positively. They learn from all of their mistakes and turn them around into something positive. And I think people in everyday life get down on themselves a lot because something doesn't turn out as well as they had expected. I think my biggest message to people is just to never give up, because miracles happen every day. And when people didn't think that I was going to be able to walk again or ski race again, I proved them wrong.
The world of sport can teach us a lot about life. Whether you're watching or participating, sport takes us through emotional highs and lows. But it can also give us valuable skills and lessons to deal with whatever life has to throw at us.
For me, the raison d'etre of sport is that we do care so passionately about it that it's a chance to learn how to handle difficult emotions and learn to stay positive and respond effectively. And so if you're a soldier in Afghanistan, or a fireman in New York City, or a kid battling cancer, the responses you might learn from sport where we've exaggerated the emotions, maybe more than we should have, might one day be life-saving for us. So I think sport has tremendous potential to do that. Identify.
So in our everyday lives, we can use the tools of sports psychology to get us over any hurdle that life may throw at us. We've got a lot to learn. Until next time, I'm Teresa Cruz for State of Mind.